Alright, my name is Sean Fallon. You're listening to episode 6, Firefly. Welcome to From First to Last.
No one told you. Baby, I hear the blues are calling, toss.
Hello again and welcome again. My name is Sean Fallon and this is From First to Last. Welcome to episode 6 now. Okay, so my guest today, he's a writer, he's a podcaster, he's Why the Chicken Crossed the Road, he's Devin Meenan. Hello Devin, how are you today?
I'm good. Happy to be on.
Excellent. So what show did you choose for us today?
Joss Whedon's underrated. Well, maybe not underrated, but what's the word? It didn't quite get the treatment it deserved. So anyway, in my opinion, Joss Whedon's masterpiece, Firefly.
Joss Whedon's masterpiece, Firefly. Awesome. So with the numbers with Firefly, it's a bit different from usual because like when I started this podcast, I said the rule was the show had to be 3 seasons long. And then I sort of bent that rule for Twin Peaks, and then now I'm just breaking that rule and just changing it entirely. Yeah. This show only ran for 14 episodes from September 20th to December 20th, 2002. But it is only 14 episodes long, but what was actually aired, which we'll definitely get to, was only 11 episodes, I believe.
Yeah, and they were aired out of order.
And they were aired out of order, yeah. And then in 2005, we got the movie. So I think let's get into it. So what's your experience with Firefly?
Okay, I first came across it in 2012. I was still on that post-Avengers high, so I started looking into other works that Joss Whedon had done, and I had heard of Firefly before, but I had never watched it. So after I had learned that the director of Avengers had created it, I figured, okay, I'll give it a shot. So I watched in like maybe less than a week. I mean, obviously, it's not that difficult to do because there's only 14 episodes. But I really fell in love with the series. I feel this was my first true experience with Joss Whedon's voice because I do enjoy the Avengers movies very much, but I find his voice to be a bit distilled in them. Whereas with Firefly, it's his complete voice and his complete vision, and I just was completely captivated by it. And this was what convinced me to watch his other shows like Buffy and Angel, which I also love. So yeah.
Oh, I was saying the thing with Firefly, like you say with Whedon's voice, it's not. Like Avengers is very much, he's writing other characters, like characters he didn't invent. Yeah. And then even with like Buffy, he did invent the characters, but that sort of like archetype of high school and horror movies, again, is something that's been done before and he's interpreting it. But I think, you say Firefly is purely, it's brand new. It is very much, there's no real precursor to it. There are cowboy movies and there are space movies and there are movies about the Civil War and movies about bandits and stuff like that. But he makes it so unique in terms of like the language they speak and the way that they speak. It is fascinating.
Yeah, and you mentioned the way they speak. I think that's one of the most appealing aspects of the series to me because it truly feels like it's set in a complete world. Like the world building is magnificent. Like the language has evolved. Like you mentioned, there's different slang, like how language evolves over time. So they demonstrate that aspect of it. And that's there's more to it, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah, no, I mean it is very interesting because like for me, I came at it in a really weird way. I used to live in Thailand. I was an English teacher over there, and I lived in a hotel room for 2 years, which is a completely different story. And there was a movie channel, and what it would do is it would play from say midnight to noon, and then it would play a different movie and each movie would start on the hour. And then so say a movie started at 6 a.m. in the morning, it would then run again at 6 p.m. So you could sort of wake up and see a bit of a film, make a note of it, and then catch it when you came home from work. So what happened to me was like, I think it was just a random morning, and I was flicking through the channels, and I came to it, and I saw, say, the last 15 minutes of Serenity, the movie, and I was like, wow, this is fucking cool. So I was like, made a note, and like, okay, so in 12 hours, I'll come back and watch the whole film, and I did, and it absolutely blew me away. But then I didn't, like, track down the series for another couple of years, and when I did, it didn't really do it for me.
Oh, wow.
I think I watched like the first 3 episodes or the first 2 episodes, and I don't know, it was just a little bit too slow for me.
I personally find the first few episodes take a little while to get going, but when it does get going, oh my god. Though that's interesting you mentioned that because I've known quite a few people who are fans of the show that find the movie to be underwhelming. I don't agree, but I can somewhat understand where they're coming from. But I don't really know a lot of people who love the movie but not the series. So
Yeah,
that's
that
interesting.
was a bit weird, but like that has been interesting when I've spoken to people and Fireflies come up, and I've said like, oh yeah, movie, I'm all about it, but the TV show never did it for me. They have always said that thing of like, there is like a wall you need to break through.
Hmm.
Like the first couple of episodes are quite slow and quite plodding, and you just need to smash through that, and then it gets really good.
Hmm.
On that rationale, what did you think of the first episode rewatching it?
Um,
And when I say
it,
first episode, we're talking about the pilot, the
yeah,
Serenity pilot. Yeah,
Serenity.
okay.
Yeah, not the train job. Okay, it is a bit slow, like you said, but I think it works marvelously as an introduction to the characters in the world. Everything you need to know about the characters is established within a few minutes of meeting them. The world, like I said, truly feels complete. There's a lot of integrated world building that feels completely natural to the setting and the story.
Hmm.
And like you said, it is a bit slow. I feel like it took a while to get the pacing right, but the characters are all very well established. I'd say it's probably the best pilot of Joss Whedon's TV shows. I find the Buffy pilot's not that great. I'm not big on
Hmm.
Dollhouse, so the pilot of that not great. Angel's pilot is probably the second best, though I still think Serenity ranks above it, probably maybe because the length gives them time to explore the characters and the premise in depth. Whereas because it's 90 minutes long. The Serenity pilot is 90 minutes long, whereas the other pilots are just at regular 40 minutes. So
Yeah. No. It's yeah. I think watching it, I was struck by it. It's sort of because it is like 90 minutes long. It is
mm-hmm.
paced. It's paced like a movie. It's not
It
paced
is.
like a TV show.
Yeah, it feels like a miniature movie in and of itself.
Yeah, very much so. Like, it would actually it does make a pretty good companion piece to the actual movie
It does.
because
Even the titles.
I think they do work together because like watching the last episode in the movie again for this, it does feel of all of one world. There's a few like continuity things, but for the most
Yeah.
part, it's like, oh yeah, this you can almost see as if like Josh Whedon's wanted to make movies, but he's
Hmm.
had to make TV. So he's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, I'm gonna make TV like I'm making a movie, and that's where the
Hmm.
pacing stuff sort of comes in.
Hmm.
Now, obviously, at the start, we were saying there about the first episode. I probably should get into some of the stuff Fox did with this show, just because that tends to be the Firefly story.
Yeah.
Like you said there, like Serenity, the 90-minute pilot was shelved for, is it the train job?
Yeah. I think that's why the first episodes are a bit slow because they have to reestablish the world because they didn't get the chance to do that with the pilot.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, straight away when if you watch it in that order, it just feels wrong. You kind of just
Hmm.
tossed in randomly, and it just because I mean, I think that is like I was saying at the start, there's 14 episodes, but they only aired 11 of them. So the last episode of the series was the last episode, but that was aired out of order anyway. And then
Hmm.
the Serenity pilot, I think, was aired at the end again, just when they were burning off the episode. So like it's
Hmm.
it definitely feels like watching it. I can sort of see what the issue the studio had with it because I think it's just a bit ahead of its time. Like a show like that
Hmm.
now, very slow, anti-hero in your main character, very intense world building.
Hmm.
In a world where Game of Thrones is the biggest thing, that show would now just be standard sort of stuff of like, yeah, you're getting this crazy world building, you're not getting your hand held through it. Your main character's a bit of a bad guy in his own way, but he's got a heart of gold,
Hmm.
and the pacing is quite slow. It would do really well now, I think. But I think in 2002,
Yeah.
it was something so new that they all panicked.
Yeah. I think Joss Whedon's shows in general, at least Buffy and Angel and this, tend to be slightly ahead of their time because Buffy and Angel are both very serialized, and that was pretty new
Mm.
to genre television when they first came out. Nowadays, it's pretty standard. So.
Yeah, that's very true. Like talking about when I was talking about Buffy with Diego, there was that idea of each series having or each season, sorry, having one overarching villain,
Yeah,
but like little adventures in
which is
between.
really an ingenious idea of storytelling if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, because and then again on this podcast talking to Austin about the X Files, which tried to do the same thing but didn't have like the overarching plot was sort of the mysterious conspiracy, so it was never locked down. So it didn't work as well for me. Whereas the thing with Buffy, you could have episodes where it was just, oh, there's a werewolf in town and have a little adventure, and then the next episode could be, oh, trying to think of one, like the master or whoever has this big plot and they've got to solve that, and it would be just as interesting. Which is weird for those sort of shows, because to compare it to X-Files, you would have that thing of like, oh fuck, it's a conspiracy episode, okay, yeah, whatever, and you just sort of like running out the clock. Whereas I think Buffy, they did well to balance those two ideas.
Definitely.
Which again would be something that's very, like, obviously serialization is just what TV is now. There's very little of the other stuff.
Yeah.
Looking at my notes, it's very interesting to sort of see that, like, the way it was filmed as well. Like, he's got that thing of whenever the Alliance, whenever it's on like that stupid Alliance ship with the two big towers.
Yeah.
Everything's sort of like static cameras. It's very clean. It's very shiny. Everything with Firefly, handheld, very close, dirty, sort of like as if there is like another crew member who's got a camera who's filming them and following them around.
Yeah.
And then anything with Inara and like the companions is all very like soft focus and dreamy and all that. And I think all that stuff's very much Joss Whedon saying like, okay, yeah, I'm making a TV show, but I want to be making a movie.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the cinematography, visuals more of it. I think I like the visual style of it. It manages to fit the Western aspects and the sci-fi aspects. They do manage to gel fairly well. And I think it's the scene in the they dock on the planet Persephone, is it? Like you get to see a wide variety of people and inhabitants of the verse, and it really makes this feel like a complete world.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, there's so much good world building with like the way they sort of drift into speaking Chinese and that sort of mix of East and West. Again, like I said, there is that thing of there's never that scene where someone's like, but why do you speak Chinese? And someone says, oh, because of this, this, and this. It just is. It's comfortable. It's what everyone does. It is just the way of the world. Which I think again probably terrified the network, and that's why they
Yeah, I think probably the closest thing that comes to exposition is in the diner scene where maybe not the diner scene, but dinner scene where their Malins are talking with the passengers, and then they kind of explain how the terraforming works and how there's a lot of planets now.
Yeah.
But even that manages to feel somewhat natural because they manage to fit in character development with Mal's feelings about the Alliance. And it kind of foreshadows that Dobson's the mole because he's the one who defends the Alliance.
Yeah, that's it. Like, it's not one of those, like, it doesn't hit a wall of, like, oh, because they could have had a whole thing of, like, the shepherd being like, oh, I've been in the Abbey for 2 years, catch me up on what's happened since. And they could be like, oh, well, what happened was there was a war and this and this and this. And it's like, no, just, if you've got half a brain, you can pick it up. You don't need it spelt out, which I think is very good.
Definitely.
I think one thing they do really well with Firefly, with the movie, with this as well, is like the villains. I think having the Alliance and the Reavers as the baddies is very, very clever. Like having one side that represents just like, fascist order, and then the Reavers just representing just utter chaos, and then Firefly's just stuck in the center of that, like, which I think is very good.
Yeah, and it also plays with the Western parallel, because that's kind of where America was between the wild, untamed West and the more civilized East. So.
Yeah, you've got like the Reavers being almost like the Native American sort of like, it's like a 50s Western version of it.
Yeah, I think we didn't notice that parallel in that interview or something.
Now, with this first episode, when you first watched it, were you instantly hooked, or did it take a bit of time to break you in?
Honestly, I think with the first time I watched it, I think I was pretty much instantly hooked. Mostly because I found the characters were fully formed. You knew everything you need to know about them, so that managed to ease me into it very well. The world building was really great, so it got me, like, when I first heard the show, I was kind of confused by the setup of it. Like a space western, okay, that's odd. But then when I actually watched it, it seemed pretty natural, so that helped ease me into it as well. The dialogue, the more humorous elements of the dialogue made it entertaining, so that helped as well. And, what was it? The opening where they're salvaging the foodstuffs from the ship, and then the Alliance cruiser comes in and they're worried they may be caught. That scene, I felt there was a lot of genuine, palpable suspense in that scene, and that really the first time I watched it, it was really almost made my heart race. So that helped me a lot.
Yeah, I had the same thing with the Reavers. You know, when they're passing them.
Oh yeah, that Zoe's line where they're like when she describes what the Reavers will do, then that's in chills down my spine.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's genius. That's like again, really good world building and exposition.
Mm-hmm.
Just to be like, oh, you know, what are they going to do if they catch us? Oh, well, they'll rape us to death. They'll eat our flesh and they'll sew our skin into their clothes. And if we're lucky, they'll do it in that order. And you're like, right, great. Exposition, great snappy line of dialogue, and character, because it shows that Zoe's just like terrified of them, but also ice cold. You know, she'd probably kill as many of them as they'd kill of them, like, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's very good. Like, and also, I didn't sort of realize this till later, but I obviously knew who the Reavers were from watching the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But in that first episode, they are a complete mystery. They're just these people who, as far as you know, are just savages on this shit ship that's like all messed up,
mm-hmm.
and that's all you know.
Yeah,
you know that's genius because you're still very tense even though you don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm. I imagine we would have got to see the Reavers in their proper form had the series continued, because from what I understand, Serenity is a truncated version of what we didn't have planned for season 2, but not introducing them proper in the series in the pilot. That's, like you said, that's a really great idea. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of confidence from Whedon, like having this really good villain, but sort of just hinting at it and just having all this stuff. And I think, like you say, it does seem as though this show would have, if he just waited 10 years and made the show, I think it would have definitely been better and been bigger.
Definitely.
Battlestar Galactica, like the reboot of that, is only a couple of years after this,
mm-hmm.
and has sort of quite similar ideas. You know, it is sort of a ragtag bunch of people on a ship. There's no aliens.
More hard sci-fi approach.
Yeah, you know, it is kind of it's not obviously not as fantastical as Star Wars, and then a bit more pessimistic than Star Trek, and that sort of genre of just like it's almost where you'd put like Alien, you know, in my head. Like there is this sort of thing of like, yeah, we'd all love to go to space and it be all, you know, peaches and cream, but a lot of the same sort of stuff that's happening on Earth will happen up there. There'll still be a military, still be a working class, still be thieves. And I like that. I love that genre of just sort of, I don't know what you'd call it. I think it's sort of like the genre is like living in space is shit.
Yeah.
That's all I can really think of. Like, and I think Firefly fits really neatly into that.
Yeah, I think that was, you mentioned that it's kind of how the show demonstrates we'll still have the same problems in the future that we have today. I think that was Whedon's thesis for the series, because, you know, he likes to deconstruct genre tropes. He does that a lot with Buffy and Angel, horror tropes. Here he does it more with sci-fi tropes, because the Alliance can be kind of viewed as a deconstruction of the Empire from Star Wars. They're obviously very bureaucratic and borderline dictatorial in an Orwellian fashion, but it's not motivated out of like pure sadistic evil like Emperor Palpatine. It's more out of a bureaucratic desire for control.
Yeah, I mean that's it. There's no sort of shadowy figure at the top. It's like, no, this is just the organization that's just in power, and
it's like the operative's quote in Serenity. He's not the plucky hero. The Alliance is in an evil empire, and this is in a grand arena. That's really sums up the series.
Yeah, very much so. We'll move on to so first let's talk about the last episode. So I recently did, obviously, you definitely saw it. I did a Twitter poll of what people believe is the final sort of episode of the final story of Firefly, and I think 93% of people said it was the movie.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I think I was just intrigued to see if there was anyone who thought, no, as soon as the TV series ends, that's the end. So the last episode is Object in Space, which I think was filmed in the wrong order. Not filmed, aired in the wrong order.
Yeah, I think The Message was the last one filmed, but Object in Space is counted as the last episode.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't... Well, what did you think of it? What do you think of that episode?
I really like it. I'd say it's probably the best directed episode in the series. There's an ominous music. The ominous music really helps with the atmosphere. The exterior scenes outside the ship with Early walking on it, I think that's pretty creepy. Early is probably the best individual villain in the series, because this series didn't get time to really develop recurring villains, because only 14 episodes. But I imagine he's definitely the most memorable of the ones they did get a chance to include.
Yeah, he reminded me. Have you seen the second series of Fargo, or second season of Fargo?
I have not.
There's a character in that called Mike Milligan, and he reminded me loads of him, like that sort of super calm, philosophical. Like in Fargo, like Mike Milligan's character will just go off on these random tangents about nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And the same as early, where he's like, yeah, but if she's not in the room, is it still her room? It's just all this like sort of very calm and sort of drift. His mind's just like darting from subject to subject, which is very interesting.
Yeah. And I feel Early, I think, I'm not the first person to know this, but Early is kind of a deconstruction of the idea of a badass anti-hero bounty hunter that you see a lot in sci-fi. He's, as River points out, he's not some cool, admirable anti-hero. He's just a sadist using his job as an opportunity to indulge in his violent impulses, and his insanity is just a masquerade for that.
Yeah, and again, stuff like that is very, like, I think now that is stuff that we have a lot in culture of, like, that sort of idea of deconstructing these big stories, and Whedon's good for that with, like, with Age of Ultron, like, deconstructing what a hero is and what a superhero is and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, like you say, Buffy and Angel deconstructing horror tropes, making the blonde cheerleader the hero and stuff like that. And like I say, taking that character, taking the Boba Fett character, and saying, yeah, but a person who would actually be a bounty hunter isn't going to be like Clint Eastwood in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. He's going to be he could be someone who's just out there just to cause pain, like.
Yeah.
And but society, you could hide behind that idea of like, oh, I'm just a man doing a job. Like, well, no.
Yeah, and
take
then
a different job then.
Yeah, River says, like, he tries to block River suggesting, like, with this statement, I live by a code, and then River just instantly shoots that down, which is a great scene.
Yeah, no, fantastic.
Yeah.
How do you feel of it as the last episode? Like, if there was no movie, if this was the last episode?
Okay, it obviously, I feel there is a degree of finality with it, at least in regards to River's character, because we finally find out what her abilities are, and she seems to finally be accepted by the crew, and she has a degree of lucidity at the end when she's talking to Mal, which is probably the most lucid she's ever really been in the series. So I think there is a slight degree of finality into it, but I really don't think it serves as a really good finale to the movie the series as a whole. They really need the movie to wrap up the story.
I definitely think so. Like, watching that Objects in Space, I didn't realize how dark the show was. Like, there's some really dark stuff. Like, it's when Early's talking to Kaylee in the engine room. That scene is horrifying. That is harrowing. That scene.
Yeah, Jill State really props to her. She really nails Kaylee's terror in that scene.
Yeah, no, she definitely just has the full range of just like, yeah, you say just utter terror. She's not sort of like pantomime scared. She is just, and it's a long lingering scene.
Yeah, it's really uncomfortable to watch. I feel like that whole violation theme kind of plays into the episode as a whole, because Early's basically invading their home, and I think River states like when River is pretending to like be Serenity, he mentions that Early crawled into her, like the ship.
Yeah.
So
to be honest, watching that episode made me want to go back and watch the rest of them. Like I to see how the show progresses over the course of 10 or 11 episodes. I'm like, okay, so because that, in comparison to those first episodes, which were quite slow and explanatory and all that, that was just like whip fast, just done.
Yeah, it did.
2 minutes, And like, okay, so if they're capable of that, it might be. I was thinking to myself, I could go back and fill this in. I think this might be worth my time. Which I think I'm definitely going to make a project to sort of watch those missing 10 episodes that I haven't seen.
Oh, you should. Because this is something I wanted to talk about earlier. But there's a lot of minor continuity in between the episodes, which is why you really have to watch them in order. Like maybe maybe the events of the previous episode will play into the next episode. Like I think in the 11th episode they pull a job. Then in the 12th episode, the episode opens with them trying to sell what they stole from the previous job, and then in the pilot, I think Kaylee mentions that the ship's part of the ship's engine could bust.
The compressor or something.
Compression coil. Yeah, she mentions that it could bust like any day, and that becomes the pivotal in the plot of the 8th episode, Out of Gas, which I think is the best episode of the series. So,
okay. Yeah. So that's I'll definitely have to give that a look.
Yeah, the the minor continuity really makes it really feel like a complete world. Whereas with Star Trek, it's not. It's just episode to episode. With Firefly, it actually plays into the serialized nature of it.
That's good. Well, probably ahead of its time.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, with Firefly, it's very different from when we talked about Breaking Bad and Buffy and Twin Peaks. Like, well, probably actually not so much Twin Peaks, but obviously you've got a definite first and last episode. But as 93% of people have told me on Twitter, the last episode is really Serenity, the movie.
Yeah.
Now, what's your opinion of the movie?
I really like it. I think I know some people are dissatisfied with it, but I really like it. I truly count it as an extended episode of the series. I think it's compulsory that if you watch the series, you have to watch the movie because it's really the ending of the series. And there's some different aesthetic differences because, bigger budget, but it fits the vibe that I think Whedon created for this world, and it stays truthful to the message and the ideas behind the series.
No, I'll go. To be honest, I would definitely say it's as good as Star Wars. I absolutely.
I honestly think I might agree. It's perfect in its execution and its ideas.
Yeah, I cannot argue with it at all. I think I recently did for audiences everywhere. I did it as like a Netflix hidden gem.
Oh,
so
okay.
I rewatched it a couple of months ago, and yeah, I was just like, this movie is perfect. For someone who wasn't a fan of the TV show, I was like, I don't know why I enjoy it so much, but it's just, I think it's got great dialogue, great action, all the characters are great.
Yeah.
I mean, having that movie started my little love affair with Chiwetel Ejiofor. Like, as soon as I saw him, I was like, I need to see everything this guy's been in.
Oh yeah, it's amazing that it's confounding that it took so long for him to become an A-list Hollywood star.
Yeah, that's it. And then, because there was a point where, there was maybe a couple of years after this, he was rumored to be in the running to be the new Doctor Who.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my God, that would just be so good. And then obviously the next minute he was just the biggest movie star. And I'm like, I'm probably not going to get that now that he's been nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah.
But, his part, I think, is top 5 best villains. I think he's just so good at that, just dead-eyed, just devout, zealous faith. He definitely, what he's doing is right in his mind.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's definitely Whedon's best villain, maybe on par with Vangelis, but...
Yeah.
Here's something I wanted to mention. I feel like in a lesser writer, the operative's ultimate fate would have been him falling on his own sword, like really predictable like that. But no, Whedon manages to make a much more fitting end to the character in that he loses his belief, and that's really the movie makes a point that if you don't believe in something, then you're not really living. And so by the end of the movie, he's lost his belief in that what he's doing is right, and then you can see he's just become really hollowed by it, and he doesn't really have a point to his life anymore.
Yeah, that's it. Like, it would be very easy just to have Mal shoot him or whatever, but to have that thing of and like you say, and we'd like to deconstruct that sort of idea of a villain in the sense of no, he's not doing something out of sadism or evil. He's just got a job to do and he's doing it.
Yeah,
and then when the thing he believes is turned on him, that's punishment enough.
Definitely. And it's interesting how that scene where he talks with Mal after the massacre, and he says he openly acknowledges that and realizes what he does is evil, but it's in service of greater good, and that's why he continues to do it. I think that's a really multifaceted view of this type of character, in that he recognizes what he's doing is wrong, but he has to do it because he believes it will ultimately lead to a better world. Yeah,
that's it. Well, I mean, that whole scene has one of my favorite lines in anything, where I think it's the operative says to Mal, oh, we're not so different, you and I.
Yeah. And
Mal's like, well, I don't kill children. And the operative's like, I do. And I remember seeing that for the first time, being like, oh my God, that's such a good line.
Yeah.
Because it just shapes him perfectly of just matter-of-factly well, I do kill children. I think it's I do if they get in my way, or if
I do if I have to. That's the line.
If I have to, yeah. And that's it. Okay, well, that's that again. It's not sort of I do, ha 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 ha. It's I do because I'm making a better I'm making a better world for us all. So there are some eggs need to be broken for this perfect omelette.
Mm-hmm.
Children eggs.
oh my God. But I guess moving away from the operative and going to the opening, You mentioned earlier how we didn't. We mentioned earlier how we didn't manage to fit exposition in really organically, and the opening is just a perfect display of that. He manages to perfectly introduce the characters and establish their personalities, all in more or less a single take, without it ever feeling forced. Like, because if you look at the dialogue of that opening scene really deeply, a lot of it is exposition and goes out of its way to introduce details to the characters, but it all feels organic, both with the actor's delivery and the way the lines are composed. And it's just masterclass writing.
Yeah, no, I mean, like when I think Mal speaks to Jane and just says, no grenades.
Yeah.
And Jane's like, oh, can't I just take one? He's like, no grenades. I'm like, okay, cool. That's very quickly Jane's character all in one.
Yeah. And then
a couple of lines of dialogue, you've got him in your head, right, move on to the next person.
And that line comes back into play when they're getting chased by the Reavers, and then Jane says, like, it would be great if we had some grenades right now.
Yeah. So it's like exposition dialogue, but also a setup for a future joke. It's like, that's very good to sort of like keep those plates spinning. That opening sequence with the robbery that goes wrong, and then again you get your full thing of the Reavers and all that.
Yeah.
I mean, I watching the film, it's so lean. You know, there's no fat on it. Just everything leans on everything else, and everything else makes sense.
And also, there's a minor thing. I love how in the operative asks like the hologram of River, "Where are you hiding, little girl?" Then it instantly goes to the title card Serenity. It answers this question.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, no, very, very good.
Yeah.
Like the it's just such a I can't imagine. I don't know if you ever had it. Like, I can't imagine not liking it. I can't pick holes in it myself. Like, even sometimes, like, there's stuff that I really, really like. But if someone says to me, oh, I don't like it, then I can sort of think to myself, okay, well, if you weren't into this, you can, you know, like, say, I'm a big fan of Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. Love it.
Yeah, me too, of course.
But if someone said to me, oh, it's this, this, and this, I could say, yeah, I can see what you're saying
there. Yeah,
I can pick a few parts, but those things don't affect me, and they don't matter to me.
Yeah.
Whereas Serenity, I'm like, if you're a Firefly fan, what's not to like?
Yeah, I really like. It feels a bit more traditionally sci-fi than the series, but other than that, I don't understand how if you like Firefly, you can't like this movie.
I mean, I think it is it still retains a lot of darkness.
Yeah,
I think the characters are true to the series.
I feel like okay, I think we mentioned in an interview once he kind of intended Mal to be a little darker than he is in the series, because if you watch the pilot, which I think is closer to Whedon's intended vision, he is a bit more closed off and emotionally, and whereas in the series itself, he's not a goofball or anything, but he's a bit more chipper during his attitude. And in this one, he's more back to the original emotionally closed off, hard-hearted bastard that he was in the pilot.
Well, that's why it makes a good double feature to have like the pilot and then the movie, because that character is still. I think it does trace a good arc for him to have, like, starting the pilot in the war, you know, kissing the crucifix, being all full of hope.
Yeah.
And then you have him on the ship and everything's all sort of gone to shit.
Yeah.
And then when Serenity starts, he's still, like Serenity the movie, he is, like you say, he's still got PTSD, he's still war-torn. Mm-hmm. And then as the movie goes along, he doesn't sort of have that moment where it's like, oh no, it's all washed away from me now. He sort of just gets a good victory over the Alliance. Mm-hmm. And they go from there. And I think that works as a thing rather than him. You know, it'd be very easy to have the film if, like, you know, Whedon knows the film's going to be the last bit of the last bit of, like, you know, Firefly merchandise, media or whatever. Mm-hmm. To have, you know, at the end, Mal gets together with Inara and the ship's perfect and the Alliance has completely fallen and just ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, in the real world, sometimes you don't win, and sometimes when you do win, it's only a little win, but it's a big win to you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's good. Like, it'd be very easy to sort of have the blowing up the Death Star moment at the end, but instead it's like, no, we've given the Alliance a good kick in the teeth, but it's not going to phase them. They're not going to, you know, the Alliance isn't going to collapse, and it's not going to be like that the Independents are suddenly given all the power. It's like, no, but you've given them something to think about. Mm-hmm. And now you're still on the run, but at least you're on the run for something really good. You know?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a common trait in Whedon's writing. Like, again, he likes to deconstruct tropes, and I think this is just a larger example of that. Because it's a common thread to his writing that the villains have power, and the heroes can't really rip that away from them, but they can still try and, like, do good. Like, that's a common thread. That's probably the central theme of Angel, and it stays true to its finale, and this is another example of that.
Yeah, but I mean, I think this... like in terms of Mal and his development, when you get that scene where he's like, you all came onto this boat for different reasons, and
that
he
scene
sort
is
of
just
says,
perfect.
and at the end where it's just like, I aim to misbehave, like, oh, that's a good cowboy speech.
Yeah, it really is. And it shows like he finally believes in something again. Like he says that there has to be justice for the people who died on Miranda. Where in the series proper, he doesn't really, like Shepard says, he doesn't believe in anything anymore. He's just trying to go his way and stay out of trouble. But now he's found something that a cause he can rally behind again for the first time since the independence, and he's got to drive to see it fulfilled.
And that, in terms of like an ending to Serenity, if that is the last bit of Firefly you ever get, I think that is a good ending. I think that is.
I honestly think it is as well. If we never get another continuation of Firefly, I'm perfectly satisfied with Serenity being the culmination of the series, because I think that ending scene with Mal and River is just beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, because you do get that whole thing of you do get that whole thing like throughout. Thank you. The whole thing throughout the series of well, from what I've watched of the series, like River is very much she's the albatross, isn't she, on the ship? Like she's causing them bad luck and all that. And then sort of like you say, to have the final scene be, she's piloting the ship with Mal. They're talking about the ship as a home and all that. And she's lucid and she's talking, and he's sort of had his big victory and he seems a bit happier with himself. And to have that as the ending, it's sort of a nice, hopeful thing of like, well, maybe things are going to be okay now. Yeah, we've lost, you've lost the Shepherd, you've lost Wash, but there's still space is a big place. Things are there's gonna be more stuff to happen, but we're just never gonna see it. But there's gonna be adventures in the future, and that's fine.
Yeah,
I think it's better that than sort of like you say having the scene where it cuts to 40 years later and Mal and Inara live on a ranch on some planet somewhere with a bunch of kids, and it's just like they live in a ranch that's made out of the hull of the for the Serenity ship.
God.
And
yeah, that's not the kind of that ending wouldn't have fit with the series, and so but this more ambiguously hopeful ending that the movie actually gives us fits so much more and is honestly so much more beautiful because of it.
Yeah, it's quite similar to the Buffy ending, like
and the angel. Well, the angel ending is a bit more dark.
Yeah, well, the angel ending, I haven't seen it. I just like sort of read about it, but that's very much a kind of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid ending, isn't it? Where they sort of run into the battle.
Yeah, knowing they're not going to survive, but determined to fight the good fight anyway.
Yeah, that's it. And I mean, the ending of the Buffy one. Again, Buffy they don't cut to the future where Buffy's like married with kids or whatever, or she, there's a hint of like, oh, there is another Hellmouth in another place, and it's like, okay, well, you've won this battle, but there's always going to be a war.
Yeah.
But it's how comfortable you are fighting that war, and how you've got to treasure the victories, and that's why I mean the last shot of Buffy, where even though they're talking about in the background, everyone's like, well, we've got to go to Cleveland, and there's another Hellmouth there. Buffy just has a big smile on her face because she's won a little bit. On that day, she's won, whatever. And I feel like it's the same with the end of Firefly. It's like, well, the war's still going on, but we've won for now, so that's good. Let's leave it there.
Yeah, on that ending, I think it's very fitting that the last character we see in the series is Serenity herself, the ship.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's really what the series is about. It's about these people finding peace on this ship. That's why it's called Serenity, because they found more or less peace on the ship. But
there you go.
Yeah, yeah.
Or even actually more fitting is the fact that the last line is a bit of the ship falling off.
Oh yeah.
It's like, what the hell was that? Because I think it is very much that sort of thing of like, yeah, they're not going to have a perfect sort of fly off into the sunset ending. You do need the fact that, oh yeah, they are still on this rust bucket of a ship that's falling apart.
Yeah.
Just to remind you that just so it doesn't end with too much.
Yeah, I guess that's a reminder. I guess that ending is that with the piece falling off the ship is kind of a reminder that there's going to be trouble in the future, but they'll manage to sail on.
Yeah.
Like River's line, the storm's getting worse, but Mal says we'll pass through it soon enough. That's kind of the definitive ending for the series, and not definitive, but it ends the series on a good note that stays true to the themes.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I think they do that Whedon does that quite well as well with again, like you're sort of using flying the ship and the ship as a metaphor. Like when Mal says to Zoe, oh, how's she doing? And Zoe's like, oh, she's been through, she's been battered around, but she'll fly true. And obviously she's just talking about herself.
Yeah.
But it's it's a good thing of like Zoe and Mal are military, and they know each other as warriors. So there's not going to be that scene of like Mal giving her a big hug and her having a cry. It's like, no, this is how she's processing.
Yeah.
This is how she's processing her grief, and this is how Mal would talk to her about it. And again, even though these characters are, they're only 14 episodes in a movie old, Whedon has them just locked. Just straight away, like that scene feels very true to these characters, even though we haven't really known these characters for very long. He's got in his head, and he's writing it perfectly, who these characters are and how they would react to any situation, which is incredible.
Yeah. And you bring up how Mal and Zoe are soldiers, and going back to the pilot when there's the scene where Mal, Zoe, and Jen are in Badger's den, and Badger tells Mal how he may be a captain and a criminal now, but in his heart he's still a soldier. I think that's definitely one of the core traits of Mal's character that permeates throughout the series. I think that soldierly bond is why he's so protective of the crew, and why he's determined to do the right thing and even when the odds are stacked against him and there's no real way for him to truly come out as the ultimate victor, but soldiering on, I guess.
Yeah, no, very much. Well, I did have in my notes, like, an interesting thing is, like, Mal, when I was watching it to sort of use the Star Wars comparison, Mal's character, because he is like an anti-hero, he's quite dark and he's quite unfriendly.
Yeah.
He's like, I imagine he's what Han Solo is before Han Solo meets Luke.
Oh,
that idea of just being, you've got to do the job, you've got to do this, and so on, and there's no real time for, being friendly or not shooting people.
Yeah.
And then, like, Mal doesn't meet Luke, so Mal just always stays that way, like, whereas Han Solo goes on to be, a general and a hero and whatever.
I guess you could argue maybe River and Simon are the equivalent of Mal, of Han meeting Luke, Mal meeting them, but it only brings more trouble on them because, Firefly.
Well, yeah, true.
Because, Firefly is in Star Wars. It's not the universe where the rebels win and everyone lives happily ever after.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. That's the sort of thing, like, I think it's a good commentary because it's not sort of like, oh, Star Wars is bullshit because of this, this, and this. It is sort of like, yeah, that's one way of looking at it, and this is another way of looking at it, and I think that works really well. And I think, like we were saying at the start, that sort of, I'm a big fan of that genre of, like, it's sort of like unromantic space travel. I guess it tends to be stuff that doesn't really involve, like, diplomatic aliens. It is stuff like you say, Battlestar Galactica, where it's just human beings and robots, and then, like, even the movie Alien or Aliens, you have god aliens, but they're not like, they don't look like people, and they don't want to negotiate peace. They're just monsters.
Mm-hmm. The Reavers kind of fit with the...
Yeah, very much so, yeah, like that sort of idea of, space is, by definition, pretty scary. So they do, so you do have these scary things. It's not all clean lines and holographic food. It is going to be a bit rubbish.
Like you mentioned, space is a scary place. The series does a great job of showing that. Just in actual space itself, like out of gas, they're stranded in space with no hope of rescue. This episode does a great job of showing why that is actually a fucking terrifying situation to be in. Object in space, or when Early gets stranded in space, they make a point of how there's no hope for him. He's going to die out there, which is kind of funny because he ends up as an object in space.
Oh yeah, there you go. Well, I think, like you say, with Firefly making space scary is the fact that he does the fact it's silent.
Oh yeah, I love that so much.
Yeah, it's such a very simple little thing, but, like, I noticed, like, obviously they do it in the movie, and I think it is, like, it's such a, when you've got those scenes of people, like, doing spacewalks and stuff, and it is just completely silent, except for their voices, you are like, oh crap, yeah, because, one wrong turn and you sort of fall off something, and you pick up enough speed and you're just gone.
Yeah.
And you're just going to float away, like, and I think it's very claustrophobic and it's very good, whereas it's not all, like, laser beams and shit like that. It is like, no, space is a vacuum, there's no sound, there's no air, and it's freezing cold, and if you go out at your own risk, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, one of the, like, a weird thing that's never really been done in that sort of show before, but very, very good. Like, a very good touch. Right, do you have anything you want to add?
Okay,
Any sort of pressing things in your mind that you need to get off your chest about Firefly?
Okay, we covered most of what I want to say, but I guess I'll go back to it. I really like how Mal and Zoe are just friends platonically. There's no romantic tension between them. It's like, definitely, Wash gets worried about him, War's worried, and turns out there's nothing for him to be worried about. They completely trust each other, and I'd say they do love each other, but platonically.
Yeah, well, by all accounts, the network didn't want Zoe and Wash to be married because they wanted the door to be open for a will they won't they with Zoe and Mal.
Yeah, but I guess they kind of got that with Anara.
Well, I think all those sort of stuff, like, and I'm sure you know all this, but like if you Google Fox Firefly fuck ups, there are just like lists and lists and lists of how the network just did not know what to do with the show.
Really, they really didn't. And I feel like I mentioned in our earlier. Apparently, the idea of a space hooker was forced on the show by Fox, and to Whedon's credit, he really did his best to make Inara a nuanced character in her own right, and
Yeah,
he manages to avoid and despite the fact that she's a prostitute, he manages to avoid her being demeaned by that. She manages to become a very strong female character, which he
yeah,
writes a lot, but
yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah. No, I mean it's. I mean, I think it's fascinating as well because like I do feel as though Firefly sort of had its truncated run and it was a big tense thing, and then after that, obviously there was Dollhouse, and Josh Whedon went through the same thing. It's interesting now because I imagine he could probably walk into any TV network today and just pitch madness, and they'd be like, yeah, anything to put his name on, like.
yeah.
Where it's interesting to think like this guy went, Firefly cancelled after one season, got his movie, made Dollhouse, cancelled after 2 seasons, and then his next step was the Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, he's still, you can still sort of fail upwards. It's good.
Yeah.
And then I think now, yeah, you could. I don't know what he's gonna do next, but yeah, you could go back to TV and just pretty much get anything made. I think.
Definitely. Okay, there's some minor details about the pilot I kind of wanted to get into if we're gonna scurry around back to that, but
Of course.
okay. I feel like Dobson's character is kind of a personification of the Alliance, because like his first name is Lawrence, Law is first letters of that. Maybe I'm looking too deeply into that, but I don't think that's
That's fine.
I don't think that's a coincidence. He mentions when he reveals that he's the Alliance agent on the ship, and he's holding Mal and Simon at gunpoint. He mentions he doesn't care about, as far as he's concerned, they're all culpable for this. So, and he's that's kind of the Alliance's bureaucratic interest slipping in. And the scene where he's holding River hostage, and Mal just walks in without breaking stride and shoots him straight in the face.
Yep.
That scene is just perfect.
Yeah, I think that is genius. Like the whole Dobson sort of plot line has been sort of like almost sort of like a bit of a chess match of like, oh, this person's gonna betray you and this and this and this, and all the pieces are moving around, and then Mal just comes in just tired, just shoots him.
Yeah.
Jane, they both grab him, just chuck him unceremoniously off the back of the ship, get in and go.
Yeah.
And I think that's very much your sort of it's almost like the hand shoots first scene, that idea of having this character who you are supposed to really like, but he is just, he is a brutal criminal who will, shoot his way out of trouble.
Yeah,
and I think that's very cool.
And like you mentioned how Mal's still a brutal criminal. That really applies to the crew as a whole, because the show makes a point that they are, criminals and they're doing crime. But like I think Kaylee mentioned that has a line like that in the second episode. But like whereas the Alliance obviously are very dictatorial, but they aren't like sadists. They aren't doing it out of like a malicious desire to just do evil. They're trying to because they genuinely believe they're trying to make a better world. Like Serenity shows they're trying to create a world without sin, and that movie shows like how that really takes away everything that makes people human. But that's a conversation at the time, I guess.
No, I mean, I think you say that is fascinating because there's not it isn't, again, to use the Star Wars comparison, you can sort of see the Empire just want to control everything and kill anyone in their way.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Whedon does have a little bit more nuance with the Alliance, or from the episodes I've seen, of they're just the people in charge, and they just don't want these smugglers fucking their stuff up.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you do always have that thing of but they did experiment on River. Mm-hmm. You've always got that little there is an evil element in there, which I think just keeps them that little bit, because you don't want it to be a thing of it's too grey, and you want to see you don't want it to be a thing of I can sort of see the Alliance's side in this. You're I can, but at the same time, they did experiment on children. So
and they did. And they killed millions of people with the Miranda experiment.
And then later, of course. And then later on, you're no, they are baddies. They probably had good intentions. There is the thing Mal says where it's okay, they failed here, but what's stopping them from doing it in 5 years, 10 years? They'll try again.
Yeah.
And it is that sort of thing of they're not going to learn from the mistakes unless their mistakes are shoved in their face.
Mm-hmm. And Mal's a really great line when he's facing down the operative, and the operative tells him that because of his actions, millions of people are getting killed in the air right now, and then Mal tells him, you have no idea how true that is, in reference to the Reavers. So it really shows how Mal does kind of view them as victims because they didn't choose to become these mindless savages. It's the result of the Alliance's fuck up again.
That's it. Talking about that scene, or this like the earlier scene, that whole thing of where like the full Alliance fleet are waiting for them, and there's like the gas cloud, and then the Serenity comes through, and Teresa Legierfa's like, crazy bastard, not even changing course, lock on and fire, just like let's just get this fucking done with, and then the Reavers just through the cloud, like, oh my god, that's so good.
It really is.
Oh, that's so satisfying, and it's just like.
It's like
again, Legierfa's face, just big wide eyes, like shoot, you know.
I really think that's the only time in the movie he really loses his cool. So that's
a really
great scene. And back to that scene where him and Mal are talking about in the compound, and Mal says like, the operative asks him, "Do you really believe that?" And Mal says, "I do." And then, "Are you willing to die for that belief?" "I am." That scene is just like a perfect watermark for Mal's character development, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah, very, very much so, because it kind of goes back as well, because you've got, you know, as Shepherd Book dies, he does say, you know, just believe in something. It doesn't matter what it is, just find something and believe in it, and like, and you know, that's what's going to save you. And yeah, to have that, like, I mean, it's the same belief that he's always had, that the Alliance are bad guys, but it's just now that it's more concrete. It's less of sort of, you know, we all have our beliefs of who bad people are, but you know, you do need there might be a defining moment in your life where you're like, oh no, they're a bad person because of this thing, you know.
Yeah.
Like, we all know Donald Trump's a baddie.
Oh yeah.
But if Donald Trump came in now and punched me in the face, I'd be like, oh no, he's a baddie and he did this. You know, I have a particular grievance against him now.
Yeah.
And I think with Mal, it is that thing of like, yeah, we all know the Alliance is bad, but to actually be on Miranda and watch the hologram and have encountered the Reavers, you can give it you can give that feeling towards them a name, and that's what he believes in. Like, and I think that's brilliant.
Definitely. This is a bit more minor, but I think it's a very subtle touch, but I think it's kind of ingenious how the last thing we see of Inara is her walking into the kitchen to join the rest of the crew, because the series kind of points out how she's kind of isolated from the rest of the crew. She's not truly a member of them, and I think it's kind of reflected in the pilot when she's the only one not eating with them at the dinner scene. So having her join the crew, deciding to stay on the ship, and walking into the kitchen to join the rest of the crew kind of shows she's truly become part of it.
Yeah, that's it. No, it is a shame. Like, I think it would have been nice to sort of the movie to be massive, and there had been another movie or another season of the show. But there's a lot of people who are big fans of TV shows, and they just get one season and that's it. I mean, at least with Firefly, we got the movie.
Yeah, definitely. I think that makes it all worth it. Because here's something. When I first heard the show, I was kind of reluctant to watch it because I heard it only got 14 episodes and was canceled after that. And I really don't like getting into shows like that because, you know, you're just in for inevitable disappointment because you don't get to see how it ends. But then when I heard it was really when I found out the movie existed that I started watching the show. I was like, okay, so we do get a definitive ending. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, that's it. I sort of did a similar thing with Twin Peaks. I was like, oh, so there's 2 seasons, and I pretty much know how it ends. Oh, but there is a movie. Maybe that'll wrap it up. And I had the complete opposite of experience of what Firefly is, because that movie wraps up nothing, and it's terrible.
Okay.
So, very, very different. Whereas Serenity sort of wraps it up and is one of my favorite ever movies. So it's a very good experience.
It's one of my favorites too, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. It's such it's such a weird film in the sense of how dark it is, but also how fun it is. Like, there's so many really fun sequences and so much darkness in it that it just balances. I mean, I think that is Joss Whedon to a T. Like, he has that ability to go pitch black dark and then really silly humor, and he balances that so well to, like, it doesn't feel like a huge tonal shift. Like, that final scene, well, not final scene, but that scene where the crew are sort of sieged in the room and the Reavers are going to break in. And that's obviously terrifying because it's sort of like, oh, this is the last stand, and they just got to make a last stand as long as Mal can do the thing. And that scene is so tense, and so many people are getting like shot and all that. But there's loads of jokes in there as well.
Yeah.
That keep it going. Like, a lot of the Kaylee stuff's very funny and very sweet amidst all this sort of darkness and all that. And I think that is the sort of genius of Whedon in that sense, to be able to find... It's to find the humor in a very dark situation and to find the darkness in a very funny situation.
Oh, yeah,
which
definitely.
I think works very well.
I think that's maybe why some people aren't so fond of his work, that I wouldn't say inconsistency, but that melding between light and dark is, warm, fun, and all that. I give you props for your funny your piece on that, but that's a discussion for another time.
Well, I think that is last bit, and then we'll wrap up. Like, I think that was a bit of a beef that people had with Age of Ultron.
Yeah, definitely.
Was the fact that like Ultron telling jokes and being a bit silly as a character, and I think that was something that people had a lot of trouble with. But I think it is one of those things. If you're someone who likes Joss Whedon, I think you can see why he's doing it. If it works or it doesn't work, you can sort of see what he's doing, and you can and that can be enough. Because I was sort of watching it, and when Ultron did start speaking and some of the dialogue, I was like, "Oh shit, this is what he's going for." Yeah. Not sure I'm into this, and then it grew on me as the movie went on. But I can imagine people who aren't keen on his voice just being like, "No, not at all. Not a fan of this."
Definitely.
Yeah, me and Diego did talk about that, like the idea of Whedon dialogue is very tough to act and sometimes can be very effective.
Yeah, it's very idiosyncratic.
Yeah, very much so. But I think Firefly, with his sort of crazy mix of like old, new, Chinese, cowboy, like a lot of Mal's dialogue is very affected, and some of the words he uses and stuff like that. But I love it. I think it's really good. I think it's like music.
It is. Even the opening theme of the series, I think that works really well when read as a poem.
Yeah, no, very much so. So, Devin, where can people find you?
On Twitter, you can find me at DevinM626. You can also find me on Letterboxd at Devin Meenan, capitals for the first two words of that. I actually wrote a brief write-up on Serenity if people are interested in that.
Oh, fantastic. Well, me, obviously, you can read my movie writing at audienceeverywhere.net. I recently did a Netflix hidden gem about Serenity, so that's there. You can, if you want to be a guest on the show, you can find me on Twitter at FromFirstToLastPod, I think. And you can email me at FromFirstToLastPodcast@gmail.com. Other than that, I don't think I have anything to announce, so anything else will be on the mini episode. Thank you for coming on the show, Devin.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
Excellent. Well, my name is Sean Fallon. This has been From First to Last. Goodbye.
Little bit